In this video, we are going to be learning about different types of compounds and how to identify them based on their chemical formulas. In chemistry, we use a systematic language to name compounds. The name of a compound communicates what type of compound it is, which elements are present, and for molecular compounds, it can also communicate how many atoms of each element are present. Spelling is important because small differences in names can represent completely different compounds. For example, nitride, nitrite, and nitrate differ by only a few letters, but they have different chemical formulas. Compounds can be divided into three main categories: ionic compounds, molecular compounds, and acids. Ionic compounds can be further divided into type 1 ionic and type 2 ionic compounds. Acids can be divided into binary acids and oxyacids. This gives us a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of compounds that will each have its own set of naming rules. Ionic compounds form when positively charged cations and negatively charged anions are arranged in a repeating pattern held together by ionic bonds. Ionic compounds do not exist as individual molecules. The exact number of atoms in an ionic compound depends on the ratio of ions needed to balance the charges. The smallest repeating unit of an ionic compound is called a formula unit, not a molecule. In the chemical formula for an ionic compound, the cation or positively charged ion is always written first, and the anion or negatively charged ion is always written second. Molecular compounds consist of groups of neutral atoms bonded together by covalent bonds. Each individual molecule contains the same number of atoms. Acids are a special category of compound. Although acids exist as molecules, they are made out of hydrogen plus ions combined with an anion. The bond between hydrogen and the anion is highly polar covalent. When acids dissolve in water, the H plus ions separate from the anions. Because H plus ions are highly reactive, acids are given their own category, and hydrogen is always written first in the chemical formula for an acid. We can identify the type of compound by looking at the elements present within the chemical formula. If we see a metal element or a polyatomic cation, such as ammonium, combined with a nonmetal element or a polyatomic anion, the compound will be ionic. Metals tend to lose electrons to form cations, and nonmetals tend to gain electrons to form anions. Any combination of cation and anion forms an ionic compound. Remember that the cation is always listed first in the chemical formula. For an acid, the first element listed in the chemical formula is hydrogen, and it will be bonded to a nonmetal element or a polyatomic anion. So hydrogen with a hydrogen listed first and a nonmetal element or polyatomic anion will be an acid. Finally, if a nonmetal element is bonded to another nonmetal element, the compound will be a molecular compound. Although all acids contain H plus ions, not all compounds containing hydrogen are acids. Hydrogen can also behave as a nonmetal element. If hydrogen appears later in the chemical formula rather than being listed first, the compound is typically molecular. For example, NH3 is ammonia, which is a molecular compound. Water, H2O, is an exception. Hydrogen is listed first, but water is not an acid. Water is a molecular compound. Here's a practice question. Classify each compound as an acid, molecular compound, or ionic compound. The first compound is HCl. Since hydrogen is listed first and it is bonded to chlorine, this is an acid. The second compound is Fe2O3. It contains iron and oxygen. Iron is a metal and oxygen is a nonmetal, so this is an ionic compound. The third compound is SF6. It contains sulfur and fluorine, and both elements are nonmetals. Compounds made out of only nonmetals are molecular compounds. Next is NH4Cl. Although it contains only nonmetal elements, there is a polyatomic cation hidden within the compound, ammonium, NH4+. This compound is ionic because it consists of ammonium cations and chloride anions. Next is HNO3. Hydrogen is listed first, and NO3- is nitrate, a polyatomic ion. Therefore, this is an acid. Next is H2O. Although hydrogen is listed first, water is not an acid. Water is a molecular compound. Finally, we have CaCl2. This compound contains calcium, a metal, and chlorine, a nonmetal. A metal combined with a nonmetal forms an ionic compound.